Thomas and the Magic Railroad is the lamest and stupidest thing since season 3 and beyond of the Brady Bunch. It is a lazy, lackluster, boring, and stupid Thomas the Tank Engine movie that shouldn't have been made. Now I will admit, this movie is not as bad as Superman 4, The Quest for Peace, which I reviewed in the last episode. But do not be fooled, as that is not saying much. It is still a stupid, mindless, pointless, and worthless movie that has no purpose in Hollywood. Let us talk today about why this movie was never destined to be created, and why the world would be a better place if it didn't exist. Now once again, there will be spoilers in this review. More than likely, you don't give a crap, but just in case you do by chance, consider this your warning. Now that we've gotten that out of the way, let us begin. So the movie starts out with Alec Baldwin narrating as Mr. Conductor. Good heavens, I cannot believe this is the same man who plays such great villains, including Dennis from the SpongeBob SquarePants movie and Mukunda the Lion from Madagascar, Escape to Africa. Unfortunately, however, this is one performance such as that will be long forgotten, which I do not blame on Alec, no sirree. I blame the writing and the writer of this movie, and I also blame the caster, because let's face it, this was not his movie. Anyway, moving on. So the narrator tells us all about the beloved island of Sabr. Here I know, I suffered pronunciation, as we see Thomas chugging along down his very way down the tracks. So far, the movie looks promising enough, but it all goes downhill right from the start. When Thomas pulls into the station and meets Gordon at the beginning, Gordon tells him that he is late, but when he counts how many seconds late Thomas is, he manages to count all the way up to a staggering 8. That's right, an entire 8 seconds late. I don't at all get why they wrote that into the script, as it is never Thomas's character to be late. He is almost always on time. Furthermore, Thomas being late does not tie into the plot in any way, so it is completely pointless, other than I guess in an attempt to build Thomas's character, to make him feel weaker and less important than the other engines. But doing so by making Thomas an entire 8 seconds late is not quite the best of ways to go around it. This should have had him cause a massive crash and cause a business to lose money, or make some important person late for something, but don't make him 8 seconds late. I never knew the people of Sabr to be first world problem people, who can't even stand to be 8 seconds late pulling into a train station. Anyway, while exchanging words, we discover that Sir Tophamet, aka the Fat Controller, is off on vacation, so Mr. Conductor has come to watch over the engines, mainly because the island of Sabr is being terrorized by the infamous Diesel 10, an evil diesel engine with a retractable claw in his roof. Diesel 10 is by far the best thing about this trash movie. He's evil, he enjoys being evil, and I mean come on, a diesel engine with an attached claw, now try to tell me that is not cool. But unfortunately, the writer threw all of the potential away while writing their script. The coolest character, or coolest thing period, of the movie, had such a lame entrance. He veers right past Thomas and Gordon, while shouting, "Get out of my way." But neither Thomas nor Gordon were in his way, so I don't get why he would say that. Additionally, he also says he has work to do and has to finish it fast. What work? What was he talking about? Does he work on Sabr too? I don't know. So the movie, up to this point, is already kind of lackluster, but from here, it only goes from bad to worse. So then we are introduced to Mr. Conductor's hometown, Shiny Time Station. Now I don't know a lot about it, but Shiny Time Station was apparently a spin-off of Thomas and Friends. However, it aired mostly in the US, so many European audiences were confused, as they were unfamiliar with the setting of Shiny Time Station. I myself was even more baffled at the random lame song that plays telling us all about Shiny Time Station, which really doesn't inform us much about the place at all, or at least things we cannot already tell about the darn station. But I wasn't as confused about that as I was seeing two kids playing together in a field about 5 feet away from the train tracks, as a train comes steaming down the tracks, and the driver doesn't seem to give a crap about them, or at least that they are way too close to the train tracks. And then, we are introduced to this 10-or-something-year-old kid talking to his dog, a kid that you don't give a crap about at all, and wish that a meteor would come down and incinerate him in an instant so we don't have to listen to his annoying voice any longer. And then, we learn that Mr. Conductor can only travel between his world and the island of Sabr using a special substance called gold dust. But why does he have to use dust? If Sabr is in a different universe as Shining Time Station, why couldn't he use some sort of time portal? But the reason they didn't do that is because it would have been too easy for the main character, and so they could give relevance to the magical steam engine named Lady. Lady's background story is perhaps the dumbest background story I had ever heard in my life. Diesel 10 wanted to destroy Lady. Why? Do not ask me, because I have no idea. The writers apparently couldn't come up with a good reason. So then anyway, Lady ends up going too fast, and crashes. Now my question is, how was Lady able to crash without Diesel 10 catching her? Did she literally fly several yards off the tracks to the point where Diesel 10's claw couldn't reach her, or did she tumble down a large hill? But if the latter is the case, then why is Lady shown to be completely undamaged when shown in storage? Either way, it makes no sense, and that is on top of the fact that Diesel 10 wanted to kill Lady for no real reason whatsoever, because he is evil, because the scriptwriters said so. Not to mention, Bernard Stone, who is the most boring depressing character in this entire movie. Not that the others aren't, that is, should have been killed in either situation, since he revealed to be the one driving Lady, shutting in too much coal and cause her to go too fast and crash. But he is seen here, alive and well, as if it's just a minor incident. That is one of the most illogical things I have ever seen in a movie. We finally cut back to Diesel 10 and his two henchmen, Splatter and Dodge, back on Solder. It is such a relief to see these engines again, and that we have finally cut away from the stupid boring humans that nobody gives a crap about. This is a Thomas movie, all we care about is the trains, we couldn't care less about the humans. But every few minutes, it cuts back to yet another really long dragged out sequence of the humans, which makes you want to throw yourself off of a cliff due to its sheer boringness. And then we have some retarded subplot about some girl who gets on the wrong train and ends up going to Shiny Time Station, instead of the right train station somewhere in some stupid place called Muffle Mountain. The subplot is so boring and stretched out, that you eventually couldn't care less if the train derails, blows up in a fiery explosion, and we never see this character ever again. Oh, and I almost forgot to mention, guess how this character gets onto the wrong train? Just take a guess. Okay, I'll tell you. She asks the station master's dog. Yes, you heard me right, she asks the station master's dog, and thinks that the dog is saying to get onto this one train, when in fact it takes her the completely wrong way. Now, if the dog had the magical ability to talk, as lame as that would be, it would at least have made sense. But no, the dog doesn't talk at all, so how in earth was she supposed to know what on earth the dog was saying? I don't know. Also, this character ends up being driven to Muffle Mountain by the station master, after she somehow finds out that she got on the wrong train. So what was the point of her even taking the wrong train in the first place? I have no clue, and thinking about it makes my brain get twisted up. So during this 45-minute long train sequence showing the character being taken to the wrong station, we have to listen to this really boring retarded depressing song about something. Meanwhile, we are introduced to Jar Jar Binks Jr., Mr. Conductor's annoying cousin, who just happens to need gold dust too, just like Mr. Conductor. Why is this idiot in the movie? He serves no purpose, and is yet another character you wish would just die in a huge explosion. I also don't understand how Mr. Conductor manages to call him with a set of flowers. Yes, he uses some sort of flower to contact Junior on the other end, who is in the real world. Speaking of which, Sir Tophamhet keeps calling Mr. Conductor to make sure that everything is alright, using the same technique, the flowers, as cell phones. So wait, does that mean that Sir Tophamhet is taking a vacation in an entirely different universe, so that he needs to use this retarded flower phones to contact Mr. Conductor what feels like every 5 minutes? I guess I can understand Jar Jar Jr. having to use them, since he clearly is in a different universe, but Sir Tophamhet? What universe is he calling from, and why could they not show that to us? Also, how does Sir Tophamhet know which flowers to use to contact Mr. Conductor, as they are always the ones right next to him? Does he always know where Mr. Conductor is? But if that is the case, then what's the point of calling every so often to make sure that everything is okay, if he always knows where Mr. Conductor is? And if he can tell where Mr. Conductor is, then he should be able to tell where the engines are, I guess. I don't know. But furthermore, the last time we hear from Sir Tophamhet is near the end, when he announced that he is on his way back. It really irks me that they couldn't even show Sir Tophamhet at all. Were they unable to find a correct way to portray him right? Why did we never see him? I don't know. So after a really long, boring, nonsensical, inconsistent sequence of circumstances, Lady is finally resurrected, and returns to the island of Solder, where Diesel 10 finds her and chases her and Thomas. This is by far the coolest sequence of the entire movie, because it is the closest thing to an epic adrenaline sequence that we can possibly get. I don't know why this is, but Thomas is something that, if the movie was made right, could feature some pretty cool chase sequences along with epic crashes and have it be a really awesome movie, and that is exactly what this movie could have been. But unfortunately this opportunity was missed altogether, and the result is this crappy movie. So anyway, the trains go over this big bridge, which begins to collapse, and by the time Diesel 10 tries to go over it, the bridge collapses, and Diesel 10 falls into a freight boat below. Just as a side note, it turns out that there is a mistake in the scene where Diesel 10 falls. There are multiple sets of tracks in this bridge, and Diesel 10 wasn't ever on the same set of tracks as Thomas and Lady. But as Diesel 10 falls below into the boat, he is suddenly on the same set of tracks that Thomas and Lady were when they crossed the bridge. How did Diesel manage to switch tracks like that? I do not know, nor do I really care. So then, Mr. Conductor and Jar Jar Binks manage to get their gold dust, and return to Shining Time Station, and live happily ever after, as do the engines of Solder. And so that is how this crappy excuse of a movie ends. Now, before I wrap up this review, let me touch on one important subject that deserves to be talked about in this review. It turns out, as some of you may or may not know, that Diesel 10 was not the main villain in the original script of this movie, but rather it was a human character known as P.T. Boomer. However, he was cut out of the film after test audiences complained that he was too scary. That was the biggest stupid mistake they could ever make when it came to the production of this movie. Leaving P.T. Boomer in this movie would have made much more sense. His character was too pivotal for the movie to cut him out, and as a result, the movie's plot was complete crap. Now that I think about it, maybe it wasn't the scriptwriter's fault after all. Now don't get me wrong, I am not excusing the scriptwriter entirely, but then again, we shouldn't blame all of this movie's problems on him. His character explains why the dog, out of safety reasons, led the one character to Shining Time Station instead of where she was originally supposed to go. The plot would have made more sense with him in the movie, but instead, we got a completely watered down mess of dog poop mess excuse of a Thomas movie. Not to mention, how is this character too scary for children, but a giant diesel engine with a dangerous claw who could potentially kill people not scary? If you hate Thomas, then stay away from this movie. However, if you are a Thomas fan, then stay away from this movie anyway, despite what your inner feelings tell you. If your child is a huge Thomas fan, and loves Thomas to the core, show them something else, show them Monsters Inc. instead. That is all I have to say about this retarded movie. Tune in again next time for another exciting movie review with Microsoft Sam right here at YouTube.com. Until then, this is Microsoft Sam of Windows 2000 and XP signing off. Good night, folks.